So we are just going to read through the PYQs and the answers. I just needed some company for me to read these things. These things get boring after a point. I mean, they're not boring, but your mind just doesn't accept. I mean, look at this. This is from disaster management, and I've been reading this. And then also you have to make notes for the mains. So yeah, it's a heavy process. So now this is globalization, and all right, we have other things too. Uh, Recent developments in Indian foreign policy. These are the questions. These five are the previous year questions. This is one of the uh, keywords mentioned in the syllabus for PSIR second paper B. So these are the previous year questions, and these are the possible framed other questions, and then their answers. Uh, I'm not saying the answers are the best, but you can of course draw something, extract something, and cover the syllabus that way, and you can add your value, whatever you and want to add to this thing. So here we are. This is part of society from first general studies paper GS1. So effects of globalization on Indian society is a keyword from the syllabus directly. So discuss the impact of globalization on traditional values in India. All right. Globalization has significantly influenced various aspects of Indian society, leading to economic growth, technological advancements, and cultural exchange. However, it has had profound effects on traditional values, which have been the foundation of Indian society for centuries. Okay, so there has been an economic growth. So this is the micro level. We have to uh, get grips on these subjects to write good answers for mains. So urbanization is also a result of this economic growth. Globalization has led to technological advancements. We have mobile phones and stuff, and the economic growth is one effect. All right, after the liberalization, and cultural exchange has happened. We look at ourselves and you see what are our tastes and what songs and stuff we like. How do we like to look like or dress like? However, it has also had a profound, and what do we like to eat most of all? However, it has also had profound effects to traditional values. So the body, it says impact on traditional values. That's the heading it has coined out of this. Impact of globalization on traditional values. So the heading is impact on traditional values. Family structure. Globalization has led to the rise of nuclear families. Urbanization also has some contribution to it, particularly in urban areas, challenging the traditional joint family system that has been central to Indian culture. All right, globalization की वजह से nuclearization of families हो गया. Cultural homogenization, the influx of Western culture through media and the internet has led to a shift in cultural preferences, particularly among the youth, resulting in the erosion of traditional practices, languages, attire. Attire though has been eroded a lot. आजकल you don't look at young people wearing dhotis here, and influx of Western culture through media and the internet. Internet, of course, but also media has been. Media is always running somebody's narrative. Media usually it's very difficult, and very few people are generally neutral. It's very rare to find somebody who's neutral. Neutrality is a quality, you know. He can, in his opinion, fall on either side, right or left, but still can be a neutral person, and that's the quality. That's the kind of ethical understanding that we look for in people. So family structure, cultural homogenization, influx of Western culture, languages, attires, and traditional practices have changed, and consumerism. Uh, Globalization has introduced a consumer-driven culture, leading to materialism and a shift away from traditional values of simplicity and community-oriented living. Community-oriented living and simplicity. Wow. So materialism आ चुका है. So if you just think about the sophists and Socrates. So sophists were materialists in Athens, ancient Athens, and Socrates was philosophical, and he was a critique of the sophists. And currently, so are the capitalists um, on the sophist side, and is Socrates not on the side of the capitalists? Whatever. Consumerism. Globalization has introduced a consumer driven culture, leading to materialism and a shift away from traditional values of simplicity and community oriented living. Gender roles. Exposure to global ideas of gender equality has influenced the traditional roles of men and women in Indian society, leading to greater empowerment of women, but also challenging long held patriarchal norms. So, yeah, it's generally, yeah, talking about the impacts. So, okay, some people are ultra conservative and they get hurt by these things, perhaps. Religious practices, while globalization has facilitated the spread of Indian religions globally, within India, there is a noticeable decline in traditional religious practices among the younger generation. Alright, the globalization has made Indian culture a commodity, exotic commodity for sale in the West, but in India, the things are rapidly getting westernized. And education and values. The emphasis on Western style education has shifted focus from traditional knowledge systems and values to a more individualistic and competitive mindset. Alright, but यही तो चाहिए for your economic growth, that's what you say. Impact on rural areas. In rural India, traditional practices such as agriculture based livelihoods are being replaced by modern globalized methods, leading to a decline in traditional occupations and crafts. And globalization has both positively and negatively impacted traditional values in India, while it has led to modernization and economic growth. It has also challenged the preservation of cultural heritage, and balancing modernization with the preservation of traditional values is crucial for India's maintaining India's unique cultural identity. So we're just going to uh, think a bit about this answer. I just don't feel like using a pen and paper, so I just want to speak and read this material out and I think out loud. So the thing is, impact of globalization can be seen at different levels. Um, you can see the effect on gender, women empowerment. You can see the effect on young people. Maybe they're getting influenced by the Western consumerism and Western lifestyle, and leaving behind their traditional attires, languages, and stuff. And of course, there has been nuclearization of families because they shifted to urban areas for better prospects, economic prospects that the globalization has brought. And with globalization has come new technology. We have mobile phones, internet, and we are all connected like a village, like a huge village. The world is one connected village, and in this globalized world, people with access to technology and access to information from any part of the world are getting individualistic, and they um, some times happen to be get so ignorant about um, the people in their family or their relationships, that things become fragile. The more individualistic people get, the vulnerable population, the elders, and those who are living alone in the villages, they are better off than those who live in urban spaces. Um, and there's no proper care for these vulnerable population. So, and not everybody can access that kind of supportive palliative care. So yeah, let's move on to the next things we have. And also education and values. Western education is going on, Western media and Western culture, Western food. The question is basically on impact on traditional values. So you can also talk about the food culture where we um, prefer, I mean, like these pizzas and burgers a lot and stuff. And educational values, impact on rural areas. What has been said here is traditional practices such as agriculture based livelihoods are being replaced by modern, globalized methods, leading to decline in traditional occupation. I wouldn't say agriculture is declining, they are doing it the same. But the other handicrafts, local crafts, and stuff have gone down because you're also providing market access to uh, companies from the world, globalized, global products um, coming in, and there's no space left for the traditional Indian ground level manufacturing. It's all a globalized manufacturing thing where you have to acquire the skills to do it, and Indian people who are not able to acquire the skills, they go into construction if they're not able to do agriculture. And you see a lot of women in construction sites um, doing the lifting work. And also in India, there's something I want to say. You see how hard work this is, the construction, working in a construction for months, living there in those conditions. But how much do you think they get paid? In India, the worst kinds of jobs are paid the least. And those jobs which require the most hard work and mental uh, fortitude, those are what are paid the least. I mean, I'm not against education and intellectual uh, collared jobs, but all right. So we move on to the next one, and the second question is: has globalization led to a breakdown of traditional structure of Indian society? Now, this is about traditional structure of Indian society. So we are going to write about families, the nuclearization, and relationships within families where the elders and yeah, vulnerable people and maybe children are a bit neglected. And what are other traditional structures in Indian society? Divorces, have the divorce rates gone up? See, we are going to extract data for all of this, but I'm just going through the dimensions and the story. Every subject, every keyword mentioned in the syllabus for UPSC mains has its own short story, and if you read that short story, uh, the question will be asked from the short story itself, and how well versed you are with the short story is what will determine how good your answer is. So these are just short stories, and each short story has some different kind of vocabulary, language, and structure. It's not a story like a written story. It has its own structure, and you'll be asked about the structure, and you'll not only be asked about the story and structure, but you will be asked your analysis if yeah, somebody did the right thing or not, or what were his challenges and what were the factors that were helping him. etc. So we are just getting this story inside us right now, and we'll get the data. We don't, I mean, the, I have that in my plan. Globalization uh, has brought about significant changes in Indian society, influencing its social structures, economy, culture. Yeah, okay. However, its impact on the traditional structure of Indian society is complex and multifaceted. Body breakdown of traditional structures. So they're talking about structures breaking down familial structure. The traditional joint familial system is increasingly being replaced by nuclear families, particularly in urban areas due to economic mobility. Economic mobility is a keyword here. All right, there's social mobility and there's economic mobility. Economic mobility and changing lifestyles, cultural shifts, the influence on of Western culture facilitated by globalization has led to changes in traditional practices such as the marriage customs, festivals, social norms, contributing to a gradual shift in societal values. So, we did get this thought about divorces. So, we could write if we acquire the data of the divorce rates, if they have gone up or whatever after 1991. And because it is in 1991 that the globalization truly started to happen in India, and so the divorce rates and there are single parent child families, many these days in the country. Not these days, for since long, I guess. I mean, I didn't have any data or idea, but I know. And festivals being celebrated differently, and what examples can we think of? Um, Western influence. Are we celebrating Halloween yet? Some people must be. So that's effect of globalization and contributing to gradual shift. Social norms also very okay. Particularly in urban areas, so you can concentrate your thoughts on urban situations when you're thinking about answering this question right now. Contributing to a gradual shift in societal values and economic changes. So the shift from agrarian to service and industrial economies has altered traditional occupational structures, uh, leading to a decline in caste-based professions and a reconfiguration of social hierarchies. This is a nice point, yes. And so this also did come in my mind, but I didn't articulate it at that time. So there's a disruption of the caste-based. When I said social mobility, so there's economic mobility facilitated by globalization, and there's social mobility also that is facilitated by globalization because the traditional occupational structure based on castes is slowly eroded, and the agrarian structure, particularly, what was that caste-based thing when it was largely agrarian, and then came the industry and services particularly. Uh, Anybody can get into the services. I mean, if you just do the coding part. So there's a disruption of the caste-based occupational structure. So these are the structures. Eh, when you talk about structure, traditional structure. So what comes in my mind is mostly about the family and social relations, where it's not just social structure, traditional economic structure, traditional political structure. But there's not much globalization has done affected the political structure, traditional political structure, but social structure and economic structure definitely have been affected, and gender roles have been affected, and what else? Marriages, families, vulnerable people, their care, and the resilience of traditional structures. What's the question? Is that asked has critically analyzed? So it's a critically analyzed thing. So breakdown of the traditional structures उसके बारे में there's a paragraph, and then we come to critically analyze resilience of traditional structures, continued relevance. Despite these changes, traditional structures such as caste are reinforced, and the community and kinship continue to play a significant role in social organization, particularly in rural areas. Yeah, true. Okay, so the limitation of the globalization is also being put into points here. And adaptation. Traditional structures have shown resilience by adapting to new economic realities, such as integration of caste networks into modern business practices and politics. This was in my head. I mean, yeah, okay, helping your kin and these things are still going on, and particularly in rural areas, and also it has the traditional structures have also adapted themselves to some extent with the with a new emergent economic structure. So the conclusion says it's actually three, four, five questions, and we'll be done with globalization as the topic within society. Totally, all right. Globalization in GS1 will be done. So I'm doing this second. Oh, this is third. See, also look that the things are being repeated here. You look at that. So that's why things get reinforced and you're totally thorough with the subject. So, conclusion. While it's a short story and you're thorough with all the different narratives about it or different angles to look at it. While globalization has undoubtedly influenced and altered certain traditional structures of Indian society, it has not entirely broken them down. Instead, these structures have adapted to the new global context, maintaining their relevance in contemporary India. Alright, that's what it should be like in the answer, perhaps. When it says critically analyze, so you have to conclude by comparing both the sides. And so the traditional structures haven't really broken down completely, and they've adapted to the new things, and the rural areas are still unaffected, not very affected. Evaluate the impact of globalization on Indian cultural landscape. This is all they have been asking from society and globalization overlap. Globalization has brought India closer to the global community, facilitating cultural exchanges and economic integration. Globalization has brought India closer to the global community, facilitating cultural exchanges and economic integration. And this has had a profound impact on India's cultural landscape, influencing various aspects of life. Body. Positive impacts and negative impacts. Okay, this segregation has been made. Evaluate the impact of globalization on Indian cultural landscape, and if you just had to write the impacts, maybe you could write them in a single thing. But if there is a scope, yeah, whenever there is a scope, and it is particularly asking you to evaluate, so you should go for perhaps the positive and negative impacts, body structure. Okay, so cultural exchange globalization has it's the same thing. You show the negative and positive sides of it. That's how you do it. Evaluate the impact. You show the entire analysis of the same thing. So cultural exchange globalization has led to greater exposure to global cultures, enriching Indian art, music, cuisine, and fostering a more diverse cultural environment. Globalization, Indian culture, including Bollywood, yoga, and traditional crafts, has gained global recognition, enhancing India's cultural soft power on the world stage. Soft power is sure, yeah, globalization. And the negative impacts are cultural homogenization. The influx of global culture, particularly Western influences, has led to the homogenization of Indian culture, with traditional practices and languages being overshadowed by global trends. Dheere dheere, it's not yet homogenized, but there's an effect of homogenization on the diverse Indian culture. Or you could also say it's also uniting them in many ways. Negative impacts. Um, Erosion of local traditions, the dominance of global media and consumer culture has led to the erosion of local traditions, festivals, languages, particularly among the younger generation. The dominance of global media and consumer culture, but in the in lots of households they watch the local language channels, local language TV channels, and जो टीवी देखते हैं they mostly, I mean, even NDTV is now not independent, so there are very few independently opinionated channels, and those are not the channels that are ranking the highest on mass consumption levels. So what I'm saying is, what are the impacts of globalization on Indian cultural landscape? Is it has been impacting Indian traditional familial relations, yeah, and it has been empowering women, and it has been um, globalization has been affecting, impacting Indian fashion pretty much. People are dressing different way now, and the food choices, and what's coming to my mind. I'm speaking, and there's of course evaluate the impact. They're just not asking about the impact of globalization. And earlier, when there was a question on impact, uh, yeah, the first question, then it talked about consumerism, gender roles, religious practices, and perhaps stuff. And when you evaluate the impact, when you are asked to evaluate the impact, that means you have to talk about whether the impact has been for good or not. So, the impact of globalization on Indian cultural landscape is that um, it has homogenized. It is leading India into a direction of homogenization, weakening the cultural diversity. They say as the negative point, but I wouldn't say so. The diversity will all is so deeply entrenched that whatever upper layer it is added upon by, it will always still have that diverse taste. And so the homogenization thing is one thing, and they're saying erosion of local traditions because of globalization. Perhaps some festivals or languages are going maybe, and of course many languages have been, and you don't actually know that the tribal people speak really different and unique small dialects, and there are only like 75 families that speak that language, and those are the languages that are actually under threat, not the languages Oriya, Telugu, Tamil, or Bangla. These languages are not in threat, and so this, if I evaluate the impact, there's positive effect because India's soft power has been um, exercised through globalization. Okay, globalization brings the soft power angle and this cultural exchange. All right. We'll have some stuff in the mind and let it mix, and then we'll see later what kind of answers we write. So globalization has both enriched and challenged India's cultural landscape, while it has promoted cultural exchange and global recognition. Okay, it has also contributed to the erosion of traditional cultural practices. A balanced approach is needed to preserve India's cultural heritage while embracing global influences. Also, we see the globe that this features. We see apartments. I call them matchbox houses. Um, we have lost the traditional Indian architecture thing, and we are just mass manufacturing similar looking buildings all the place. So the next question is, now this is not a previous year question, but this is a framed question. How has globalization impacted traditional Indian family structures. So we do the same things again and again and again and again according to the weightage of it, and you remember this stuff because you automatically you remember the story when you're doing the story again and again, and doing it like a story. So impacted traditional Indian family structures. Now globalization has significantly influenced Indian society, yes, particularly the traditional family structure, yes, which has been a cornerstone of social life in India for centuries. The impact of globalization on family dynamics is both profound and complex. Body shift to join nuclear families, and that's the main thing, that's the heading. All right. So economic mobility, that's the main thing the entire answer has talked about. Okay, but I wouldn't do that. I mean, I would have my own data and structure and whatever. I'm not saying this is the answer I'm gonna write. I'm just covering this story, the syllabus, okay, and looking at the dimensions in which it is divided, and economic and how to think. Economic mobility, globalization has facilitated greater economic mobility, leading to the rise of nuclear families as individuals move to urban areas for better job opportunities away from their extended family. Okay, economic mobility, changing gender roles, exposure to global ideas of gender equality has influenced the traditional gender roles within the family, leading to more egalitarian relationships between spouses and increased participation of women in the workforce. I would write here the PLFS, female labor force participation rate. That's the data everybody's after. Intergenerational relations, the shift towards nuclear families has weakened intergenerational ties, with elderly parents often living separately from their adult children, leading to changes in their traditional support system. I would write about old people definitely. Consumerism and individualism. Yeah, individualism is one of the main things the globalization has brought. Influence of global consumer culture has fostered individualism, reducing the emphasis on collective family values and leading to a more individual centric approach to life decisions. All right. And the impact on rural families. In rural areas, traditional family structures are also changing as globalization brings new economic opportunities and influences through. Though the joint family system remains more resilient here, all right, it has impacted the joint family system. Positive aspects, globalization has also brought positive changes such as improved living standards, better education, and healthcare, which have benefited family life. Yeah, healthcare and living standards have improved, all right. Cultural retention, I won't say education has improved. Cultural retention, despite these challenges, many families continue to uphold traditional values and practices. Despite these changes, many families continue to uphold traditional values and practices, demonstrating the resilience of Indian family structure in the face of globalization. Indian culture is very, very, very resilient, and there is no need to ever worry about it. I'm telling you, really, Indian culture is deeply rooted and resilient. Those who are creating the fear, okay, it is a threat, are the ones who are um, the threat. Conclusion, globalization has significantly impacted traditional Indian family structures, leading to both positive and negative changes. While the nuclear family is becoming more common, traditional values continue to persist, indicating an ongoing adaptation to global influences. Balancing modernization with the preservation of family values is key to maintaining the social fabric of Indian society, because, yeah, India, the families are the most important things, and even in other East Asian countries like Korea and Japan, perhaps Korea for sure, I guess. Discuss the dual impact of globalization on India's youth culture. Now this is interesting. What's up, youth? Globalization has had a profound influence on India's youth culture, introducing new ideas, lifestyles, and opportunities, while also challenging traditional norms and values. What say? Globalization has had a profound influence on India's youth culture, introducing new ideas, lifestyles, and opportunities, while Also challenging traditional norms and values, new ideas and lifestyles and opportunities yes, and lifestyles yes, and ideas. Do remember, ideas have also been um, changed and liberated perhaps. Body, positive impact was the question. Discuss the dual impact. All right, so you have the two angles here. Positive impact, cultural exposure. Globalization has exposed Indian youth to diverse cultures, ideas, and books and education, literature, and stuff. I would write. Globalization has helped Indian youth to liberate their minds. It has fostered creativity and innovation among youth, and leading to greater cultural awareness and acceptance. Right? Okay, cultural awareness and acceptance of other kinds, other ideas, or whatever is other than you. Economic opportunity. So the acceptance has increased because of globalization. Yeah, definitely there's some level of tolerance that has increased, and there are, with rise in tolerance, the forces that are not tolerant also rise. That's the story. I mean, whenever something is happening, the anti thing also rises. Economic opportunities. The global economy has created new opportunities for education, employment, and entrepreneurship, empowering the youth to pursue their aspirations and contribute to economic growth. So there are new opportunities, work opportunities, education opportunities, entrepreneurship, and this cultural exposure. Um, so what's the question? Ki? What's the dual impact of globalization on Indian youth? And so Indian youth is now having access to phones at earlier ages, and so has access to everything, information in the world, the new cultures of the world, and with that perhaps increases the tolerance levels, acceptance of other cultures and diversity, and what other effect has it on the youth? It provides more opportunities for youth and new kinds of employment, not just entrepreneurship. And you can just be a YouTuber. You can just um, do nothing, be an influencer. Yeah. Globalization, the negative impacts, I would say, yeah, is this kind of behavior. The individualism is what it brings, but individualism also leads to some kind of isolation, and it has a dark side. It goes can it can people saying they're depressed, and, and delusion or whatever things can happen like that. So erosion of traditional values is what they're citing. The negative impact of globalization is on the Indian youth. Erosion of so you're speaking like a conservative person, GPT. Erosion of traditional values. It just is upon the family. It's just about the how 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 well the family has taught you those values, and there's no real erosion. The values are always there, and with the globalization you adapt to it. I mean, if that's mm, the case many a times, I feel. But also there's this effect that yeah, there's erosion of values to some level, maybe. um, the influence of Western culture and consumerism has led not the rural people. I mean, this is not the effect on rural people. There's no erosion of values happening in rural uh, people because of consumerism. Or I can't say that, because even rural setting, um, there might be people having different kinds of influences, associations with the globalized ways of life. Um, Consumerism has led to the erosion of traditional values, with many young people adopting individualistic and materialistic lifestyles. Cultural alienation. Some youth experience cultural alienation, feeling disconnected from their traditional roots as they embrace global trends, leading to identity crisis and social tensions. Yeah, I was talking about depression and isolation. But these guys are talking about alienation from the culture and having no identity, that crisis. All right, yeah. So this one actually was deeper. So what's the effect on the Indian youth of the globalization? People are getting access to more information, education, employment, diverse kind of opinions, so they can form a well-rounded opinion, more personality development, perhaps acceptance and stuff. But the negative thing is that they are getting isolated and the individualistic and getting depressed, perhaps, and they are getting an identity crisis because of being left out of the cultural, larger cultural root of behavior. And what are the other things? There's also consumerist culture, toxicism, and perhaps uh, I don't know. This kind of negative thing that has also come in because of globalization. So conclusion is globalization has a dual impact on India's youth culture, offering new opportunities and fostering innovation while also challenging traditional values and cultural identity. Right, new opportunities and the challenging traditional values. That's what is common about globalization now. A balanced approach that embraces global influences while preserving cultural heritage is essential for the holistic development of the India's youth. And how do we do that? I mean, education is the way you can make laws for that. These answers provide a comprehensive analysis of the effects of globalization on Indian society, particularly focused on traditional values, family structure, cultural exchange, and impact on youth. They integrate both positive and negative aspects of globalization, highlighting the complexity of its influence on a social fabric. So we are just done with globalization right now, and we'll get more examples. Those examples came McDonaldization, etc. Whatever were coined. Subway licking example. But no, you should have your own examples, and we'll have a reservoir of examples for ourselves. So, this is the society syllabus. So, the salient features of Indian society, diversity of India, and role of women and women's organizations, and population associated issues, poverty and development issues, and the population and poverty, how are they related, and urbanization and related problems. Globalization and urbanization are related, and there's a poverty population relation, and social empowerment. I mean, both of these reinforce each other, population and poverty. Social empowerment, communalism, regionalism. We are just done with the globalization thing, urbanization, globalization are together. And so the last thing is social empowerment, communalism, regionalism, and secularism. We are done with all the others, right? So this is the last one now. So um, this is going to be perhaps a separate video because it's already 40 minutes plus. So we'll do this in the next video. And we'll also be discussing about the globalization. We'll just go through what we have just studied. Globalization. So globalization has both effects in most of the cases. A dual impact, double-edged sword. So globalization has led to erosion of traditional values to some extent, but they're still resilient, all right, and has impacted the youth and their choices, and the globalization has also impacted the economy, urbanization, and family structures, and social mobility has also been impacted by globalization and gender roles, and so that's it. Well, there are deeper branches branching out of these things, but yeah, we have seen some points. I mean, that's this much is proof for me that I do have remembered some of these things, and I can write the answers as I would like, perhaps. Let's see. So this is the next topic. We'll do this in the next video.